Well, welcome to Watercolor 42 and Studio 42. I always leave out Studio. I shouldn't do that. But yeah, Studio 42. And so today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a floral pattern. And it might be a little bit similar to what I did last week. But now the difference is last week I had no particular idea as to what I was going to do. I was just wiggling the pencil around on the paper, and I usually start off with the pencil first, and then I go over my pencil sketch, and sometimes I vary it, add a little bit to it as we go along. But this is one that I did last time, and by accident, by moving the paper around, I found like a face in there, and the face looked like it was playing an instrument. So what I did, I took the liberty of adding some music notes. Put some music notes in there, and so it looks like the figure playing some sort of a mandolin or whatever, guitar, and but that was purely coincidental. Sometimes that does happen. That does happen when you start off. You have no particular idea in mind. You just kind of keep the pencil on the paper. Don't lift it off too often, and just do a little bit of a line drawing. Now I'm going to do the same thing today. I'm going to call this flower, I think it's an impatient, but I'm not too good at my botany. And I was going to ask my wife what this was. It's from our garden, and flower garden. And so I just kind of snipped off a piece, and I was going to ask my wife what type of flower or the species. And I think it was an impatient. But if I'm wrong, I feel I stand corrected. But anyways, we're going to be working on this today, and I'm going to do it in the same sort of a loose style that I did here. And I'm going to be doing it first in pencil, very light, just light enough for me to be able to go over it with a marker. And then after I do the marker, then it's just a matter of coloring it in, you know, and trying to match some of the color that we have here. So we have about 6 petals. They're kind of tight together here, and the leaf itself, it's almost looks like an arrow. The best way to describe it is like an Indian arrow shape. So we'll see what we can do. Now, I'm going to try to just, if I can, loosen up a little bit with the pencil. So I might be wiggling around here for a few seconds, kind of getting the location. I usually vary the size, you know, of the particular objects, large, medium, small. And I try to do an uneven number, 3 of something, 5 of something, whatever it might be. So let's see if I can get this thing wiggling around here. I usually indicate where center is, kind of estimate where the center of the paper is, so I'm not doing something. I always try to do something that's a little bit off center. So the center is somewhere out in here, you know. Sometimes I put a mark on the paper, a little heavier, using one of my markers here. Where are we? Oh, okay, way off here hiding. All right. Yeah, I just go over a little bit later with a marker. Okay, so I got to think loose, right? Stay loose. Now, should I do the petals first or the flower? I think what I try to do, I do the background, of course, when I paint it in, but I also have to consider what would come second. Now, second would be doing the leaves when I paint it in, and probably the last thing is to do the flower itself. But so I'm going to locate a flower, maybe a large here, another one up in here somewhere, and I think this one here is kind of tight. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now I've indicated where they're going to be. Now, I'm going to go over, still using the pencil, I'm going to go over and kind of draw in a little bit more with the pencil. Now, I usually start, if it's a flower, I start basically, it's a circle, oval, whatever, and then I put a dot where the center is going to be. I put a little shape in there, and then what I do is work off of that, work off of the center with the petals. Now this particular flower has about 6 petals, and they're kind of fan balloon shape. So we'll start with one out here, okay. Another one, 2, 3. I'm looking kind of at the picture, 4. And 5, something like that. And then the center is going to be something off here in the middle, okay? So there's number 1. Number 2, I said it was probably up in here somewhere. So this flower is going to be, again, you draw the circle, and then you indicate where the center will probably be. And then this one here might go off the edge a little bit, come back in, go around this way, 1, 2, let's say 3 petals, 4, 5, and then maybe a 6 something there. Okay, so now we're coming over here. There's another flower. They're all kind of bunched together. Maybe it's because the way I plopped them on the table too. That makes a difference. Okay, so here's another circle here, and indicate where the center is going to be. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, I've used up most all of that area, so with the flower itself. So now I'm going to put some of the leaves on, and the leaves are going to be like an arrow shape. I'll just make this a little darker so you can see it. And one there. You got a couple going out this way. Part of one there. Over here we can show maybe a full leaf going out this way. You can bend them a little bit. Fill it in here. Have something going off here. And you can indicate where the stem might go over here. Now, you want to make sure your corners are a little bit different. And this shape in this corner is triangle. It's similar to that side. So what I'm going to do is break that up a little bit more there. Here, we can have a leaf maybe going off to the edge, something down here, and this corner, maybe something going out this way, some of the leaves, okay? So you get something like that, break it up. So relative, this is very loose, very free, the drawing part. Now, you're doing this with a pencil. I don't use the pencil a lot of times like you normally hold it, for writing. I usually use the side of the pencil, so I get more of a, my whole arm is involved with the movement of the pencil, at least my lower arm. Okay, now, the next thing is, to get this to show up a little bit better, I'm going to go back over it with a marker. Now, I'll probably stay relatively, obviously try to stay with the pencil drawing that I've done. But if I see something I want to add a little bit here or there, I'll probably do that. Maybe. We'll see what happens. Let's start up here. Should we do the leaves first or the flower? I think I'll do the flower in this case, okay? So let's come around like this. I started this way, okay? Now you can work very loose with your pencil, or in this case now I'm using a marker, permanent marker, okay? And then you're going to have, the center is going to be something like in here. Okay, flower number 2. This is kind of in back, 1 loop there, another loop, 3 is here, 4, 5. You might not see 6, that's in back. Okay, now, another loop, let's say, let's indicate center is a little bit off in here. Okay, now flower number 3 over in here, a little bit separated from the rest. Now, let's see. Whoa, here it is. I gotta catch up. Sometimes I do my pencil drawing a little bit too light. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll squeeze in 6 in there somehow. And center is probably somewhere in there. Now, the leaves again, they're sort of, like I said, arrow shape, right? Over here, something out here. Okay, something over here. That can touch the edge if you want. Let's put something coming down here. Break it in there. You gotta have a leaf. Well, I'm going to put the leaf somewhat in front here. Arrow shape, right? Something like that. Another one over here. Okay. Another. Now, drawing loose, sometimes you actually, at home, can physically loosen up. With arm rotations and so forth. And what I do a lot of times, I just take a regular piece of paper, maybe something like a copy machine piece of paper, and I just loosen up at home, before I even do this. Today, I'm not doing it. I'm just starting in, trying to be as loose as I can. Okay. And we want to make this corner a little bit different. Over here. Now, we've used up primarily all the space. Now, here's what I can add. I can put things like this in. If I see the petal needs to be kind of in a little bit more, you can bring it in a little bit more. Close it in here a little bit more. So you can adjust it a little bit as far as your sketch goes. It probably could use something down in here. We'll put something in there. Okay. I'm using up most of the space here. All right. Now this has an opening in here, and it's very easy to just fill that in with probably something in the background, part of a leaf or so. Now the next thing, we're going to start out, and what I usually do is I work from the kind of to the from the back. To the front. So what I'm going to do is just take some of my blue, and I usually use a big brush, and I'm just going to wet the paper, just what would be like the background. And you can paint very loose with your brush. You don't have to be fussy if you go over a line. It's not like a coloring book, even though this is the way you'd probably work a coloring book. The only difference is the coloring book, somebody else did the illustration of the book. I did the illustration myself here on a blank piece of paper to start off with. Okay, just do some background here. You don't want to get too many puddles because it takes forever to dry. Down, you see a little bit in here maybe. Okay. I can't say that I've kind of loosened up today. I didn't take the, usually I loosen up before I sometimes do my classes, but today I didn't. And the reason for that is we had company this morning come in earlier, so I didn't have a chance to kind of loosen up too much. But loosening up, it means just taking a piece of scrap paper and just doing some crazy stuff with your pencil or marker, and not so much with the brush. Okay, I'm just looking at this, make sure I don't have too many puddles that tend not to dry. Now, if you want to, sometimes you can pinch your brush out, and you can actually pick up some of your puddles with the brush, almost like a sponge. Okay, here we go, around here. So I don't think I'm leaving too many puddles. Okay. Lose some of that off. You just brush it off to the side, off onto the tape, whatever. Okay, there you go. Now, like I said, I like blue, a soft blue, soft yellow, soft greens, anything that might be a little bit softer. Or when I say softer, I mean kind of lighter. So I might start off with a little bit of, make sure it's blue that we're using here. Okay. Okay, that's going to be some green, and we'll use a little bit of blue. Okay, just a soft back. Oh, that's a little bit too soft. Let's add some more blue there. I kind of cheated on my blue. Add a little bit more color there. There you go. Now, let's try that again. You know what, I forget to put out some more paper towels here. Oh, that's okay, I'll wipe my brush on the towel. I hope it doesn't go through. Okay, now you've already wet the paper, so that's adding, you've got some water there already. So if you want to thin it down, you just have to pull it out. Okay. Now, whether you want to leave some texture in the background, that's okay. And you could take some of the blue out of here and pour it into this area. Okay, just need a little bit more paint on the brush. Come down here, a little bit over here. Okay. All right. Now, I'm using the brush, like I said, pinching it out like a sponge. And before this paint can settle in too much, I'm going to spread it around a bit. Spread it around. Okay, there we go. Maybe a little bit of hint of blue up in there. Now, if you start off with a larger brush, automatically you're not going to get too uptight. You know, you're going to paint a little bit freer and not be too fussy about whatever happens to the color. If you go over the lines, it's not like the end of the world, you know. It's not really a rigid exercise like coloring books. Sometimes the coloring books used to be a little bit rigid about, you know, not going over the lines. But when we're doing a painting, you can take a little bit of liberty with what you're doing. Or if you don't want too much of that color in there, just take it out before it settles in. Take some of that blue away. Okay? Make sure you go to the edge, because I put some tape around it to make a false matte. You'll see towards the end what I mean by that. Okay, here we go. Now, it can be a little bit lighter. Lift some of the blue out if you want. Usually around the base area. I kind of make it a little darker to give it a little bit more of a foundation, a little bit more of a base. And I do that with about everything, like landscapes especially, you know, darker color and the darker color around the bottom or in the foreground. In that case, when you're talking about landscapes, it's, you know, middle ground, background, all that. Here we go, around here. Just sort of spread the paint around, and you know what you're doing. Also, you're taking some of the color out, but you're helping to dry it too. You know, you don't want to get it too wet. I got a little bit of blue on my into the flowers, but that's okay. Now, when you're painting, when you get used to painting kind of free and loose, a lot of people will refer to you as being sort of a fluid painter, meaning liquid, water, or using more water, and letting the water settle in or spread into certain areas. Don't worry about it too much. It's not that crucial. In fact, if you paint a little bit looser, it's better, because people can look at your artwork a lot of the time. They'll say that person was too fussy, too uptight. And sometimes if you get too uptight, your painting kind of looks kind of a little stiff, a little bit rigid. So that's why I try, when I'm painting, to start off with a larger brush and then kind of wiggle around into the wet, you know, spreading the wet on into the wet and whatnot. All right, here we go. Sometimes I use a dryer at home. When I say dryer, I mean a regular hair dryer, you know, just go over it with some of that warm, hot air type of thing. Okay, that will kind of soften in. I don't like, depending on what you're trying to do a lot of times, but like if I'm doing skies and things like that, or softer material for the background, I don't leave too many heavy edges. I just kind of spread it out a little bit, soften it out. Here we go. Looks all right. Now, the beauty of watercolor too, you can kind of blot out and lift some of the color out, but also you can go over it with white. I use white acrylic and paint, and you can hide and lighten up some of the areas if you don't want the color to be too much there. But as a rule, I kind of let it go a little bit. Okay, now kind of to speed things along a little bit, I'm going to take some of my paper towel, and what I'm going to do is just sheet a little bit and blot, so to make sure this is drying faster. Okay, lift some of that out of there. I got a spot in here that I don't want, maybe I don't need that in there. Wet that, take that out a little bit. Kind of erase it. There we go. Now, blue itself is a stainer, so a lot of times if you let the blue settle into your paper, it's awful hard to scrub it out. That's when the white, you have to paint it with a white acrylic to kind of hide it. Erase some of that, blot it. Okay, if it's a little bit dark. Okay, now the next color is going to be, or I should say the next shapes too, will be doing some of the leaves. Now, you could stick with a flat round, you could do the whole picture with one brush if you wanted to. If you only had one brush, you'd have to, right? But I think I'll use my, one of my, looks like a number 16, and this is called a round, not a flat brush. And you want to try to keep a point on it if you can. And let's see if I can find some of my green, I hope. Here we go, okay. Now, this is what I do, but you could do it whatever you want, but usually I try to paint like inside the black first, do kind of the outline, stay inside a little bit. If you go over the edge, if your paint spreads out, that's okay. Okay, you're just going to fill it in. Now sometimes you could put a little bit more yellow into your color because there's yellow in these leaves here. But if you want to, you can do that. I'll show you how that works here. This one I'm just starting with my just a green out from the tube. And if it's not spreading easy, I just wet the paper, put more water on the brush, and get that to soften in more. There you go, just soften it out. And kind of fill in all the little empty area. There you go, something like that. Okay, now, here's with the some yellow. I didn't put the yellow on my palette. Oh, that's another thing too. If you're painting a particular object or thing, like flowers and so, you don't have to put all the colors you have in the box on your palette. You just put the colors out that you're probably going to use for your, and what you see, and use what colors that you're painting. Okay, here goes the yellow. A little bit of yellow. Let's put some yellow in this one. How about that? Okay, maybe some yellow on this petal here. I say petal, I mean leaf, you know. You'll have to excuse me here. Here we go, something like that. Maybe over here. Now you can still backtrack and put some yellow where I painted it just green. You can put some yellow into that if you want. Just kind of wiggle the brush around. And what I usually do is I try to kind of blend the color into the color that's already on the paper. See how you can reactivate that color and just spread it into there. So it looks nice and soft. You know, one thing you want to try to stay away, using too many flat colors, always mix a little bit of something into them. Okay, now we can go back to the green, put some green on top of the yellow here. I may have to use a little bit more extra green here because I let the yellow dry a bit. Okay, work around, just work around the contour inside. The brush happens to go outside, no big deal, you can always touch it up later. Something like that. See how I'm blending the paint on the surface. Now if that stays too yellow up there, I can always fix that up. Go over it with more green on top of the yellow. Here we go. I try to do pictures that are relatively easier to draw. You don't want to get a subject that's too uptight and it's very hard to fill it in, you know, paint it. Very hard to paint it in. That got to be a little bit too strong, so I'm just touching it up there. Okay. Where's some more leaves? Maybe a little bit over here. I think that could be a leaf there. And I've got another one. Something over here. Something green in here maybe. Have that kind of fade away. Okay. You want something to fade away, just pull it out with water. Like this, yeah, just soften it out. I went over the edge a little bit here. Probably could doctor that up. And if that doesn't work, just blot it out a little bit with a towel. You can always touch it up later. Okay, you can do something else with that, change the shape or do something. The leaf can be bent a little bit. Okay, let's kind of go with this one. This got a little bit heavy through here. Yeah. Okay, something like that. See, you can always touch it up, pull some of that out. Use your brush like a blotter. Same way with this one. This one here. This one here, I'm just going to make it look like the leaf bent in a little bit here. Something like touch it up. Touch it up a little bit. Another thing I haven't added to the leaves, you could put a little bit of the spine in there. There's a little bit of the spine. It's very soft though. Okay, ooh, I got another leaf hiding up here. Not really hiding, but I got to fill it in a bit. You put a little bit of yellow in the green. Like I said, you can do the outlines first and then fill in the middle. But sometimes what happens, if your brush starts to dry out, you really have to go back and get some water on the brush. Otherwise, it's going to get all streaky, and you don't want that. You want it to be sort of a soft color. Yellow. Yeah. Sometimes you get down into the point there. Okay. So I think we got just about all the leaves. There's a little bit more here. Okay, I think, oh, I'm sorry. I said it, almost all of them, but not quite. We'll fill this in. Okay. There's always a little bit of touch-up you can do. And a lot of times if you let something set overnight, gotta finish this one. Let it set overnight and then look at it the next morning. Everything's gonna dry out. The colors are gonna settle in, and it's always gonna get lighter. Whatever you paint it in kind of gets a little bit on the lighter side. Oh my gosh, I got all these leaves over here. We'll kind of finish this off in a hurry here. Fill this in. Might have to put a little bit more water on the brush here. Now sometimes the leaves in the background can be secondary. Just have it fade away a bit more. Okay, now, where are we? We still got a couple brush strokes to go in here. You can make it darker if you want. You can get real dark with the greens. It really doesn't matter because what happens in nature is the sunlight's going to be hitting one side of the leaf straight on, and then there's always that undershadow. There's always going to be, but sometimes if you leave the leaf like this one here is too uncovered, you want to put some more paint into that. See, you can always touch them up and give them another coat of paint. Sometimes if you want to finish filling in something, you can. You always find some little thing that needs to be done. If you see too much white showing through, what I do is just do a little bit of a kind of soft color for the background and just pull that out. Just soft blend it out, have it fade away for the background. It's just to fill in that empty space. Okay, something like that. A little bit more in here. Now there's always some little shading that you can do. Usually I do that towards the end, and sometimes I do it even the next day. I look at the work the next day and touch it up then. Okay, now, have I got everybody? I hope. I hope I got them mostly filled in. Okay. A little bit of shading here. like I said, there's going to be a lot of little shading that you're going to do. If these look too light, we can always go over them, darken them up a bit. Always that little touch up. Okay. Now the flower itself, we want to make sure that we leave a little bit of white around the center because I want to add a little bit of orange, some of the little seedings, whatever they might be called. And I'm going to use my, this one over here. They call this one, actually it's a alizarin crimson, but there's another name for it. Let's see if I can get that shading down a little bit. All right, now, a little bit out in here. Okay. Now, what I do is work that color in. Okay, work that around. Now, if there's a little bit of blue there on your paper, what happens is it starts to mix in with the that soft alizarin crimson. Okay, do this one. I'm sticking with the same brush. Now, you can always highlight. If this is a little bit too solid a color, let's see if I can find a piece of my paper towel here. And you can always blot that. See how you can sort of lighten the petal up because the way the light hits it. Now, let's say, for example, I left too much blue in there. We can always put white. You can mix your white later on and touch that up. This one's gonna have a different little bit of a shadow, a shading in it. But that's okay because you don't really want the surface of your flower to be just one flat color. You can use some of that blue to work. And it is in there. It is in the plant. Okay. Oh, this is a big area, isn't it? It's just, oh, come on. I'm going too easy with my color. Nothing on the brush. Here we go. Come around there. Again, fill that right in. And you, like I said, you can hit it, blot it, and so forth. Bring out some of the highlight on the petal. Let's do this one over here. Okay, you can see I'm matching the color of the flower. Trying to. They use the word local color. Something that's relatively local, close to it. Okay. I'm leaving a little bit of white in areas here and there. I can always rework it, reactivate the color, soften it up a bit, wherever I want. Want it to be a little bit in the shade. You pull more of that, leave some of the blue into it, make it darker in places. The thing is, you want to kind of stay away from getting too much of the solid color. Okay, we'll do this one. The smaller ones, you can almost do 2 petals at the same time. You don't have to be too fussy with it. I leave a little bit of light coming through. If you don't want too much light, you can always touch it up. Fill it in. They call the light areas like a window type of thing. Okay, let's wiggle around in here. I'm being overly sensitive here. Gotta get nearer to the edge. Okay, get some over here. And like I said, you can, if you want the highlight to be anywhere, you just hit it with a paper towel. You'd almost look at the flower itself, and you can see where the light's stronger on the surface of the petal. It can be darker as you go around underneath too. I just want to get some paint on here. Okay, you can see this can be much darker. It's underneath, it's in the shadow somewhat. Got one more to do over here. I got a lot of blue paint that went over the edge here, but we can blend that out. Like I said, the blue itself is sort of a stainer. Okay. Get some in here. That could be a little bit darker. That inside of the groove sometimes you want to show more of the contrast, so you put the shadow in there, and then just make sure you just pull the shadow out, soften it out as it comes out into the light. Let's do up into here a bit. Okay, got a lot of blue into here, and anytime you have a little bit of too much, that's where the white comes in. You can take your white acrylic, and we'll put a little bit of this out on the edge of the palette here. And anytime, did I get enough of it? I don't know. Okay, you don't need an awful lot, but anytime you want to lighten up something, let's say in here, let's pick on this one. If you see too much blue, you just put some white into it, mix it around, and now you can take some of that out. Okay, now this has got a little bit of an empty area right in here. I think I could fill it in a little bit more on the petal, but if that looks too light, let's go back, pick up some of your green, and use the green like a filler. Doesn't have to be any particular texture, but just make it a little bit darker in there. If anything, I'll probably just finish the petals off a little stronger in there, and then maybe make it look like a stem or something in there. Sort of break it up. Just for now, we'll just make it a little bit darker. Something like that. Just fill it in somewhat. Okay, yeah, kind of add a little texture there. For now, okay. Now, one thing you have to be careful of, certain areas you don't want to give too much attention to. Like I take some of that green and just soften it out, pull it into here. You could put a little bit more into there, but just make sure you don't get carried away with too much of that. Let's say this needs maybe a little touch up here, touch up, just go around, touch up, whatever needs to be done. This was kind of a little bit of a bumpy edge. You can kind of clean that up a little bit more. But, you know, wherever. Now, a lot of times I'm going to let this set up a little bit, and sometimes what I do is I come back in and I'll put a little bit more of, let's say, a neutral color like Payne's Gray or something. You can come back in, and in some of these areas, you know, you want more shadow in there. Use some of this Payne's Gray in there. Put some of that back in. You don't want to go too heavy with it, though. You have to go easy. I got too much blue into that. So that's where white comes in. You can touch that up a little bit later. And a lot of times if you get blue into an area, just repeat it somewhere else. Take that blue and use it somewhere else. See how it looks like it's supposed to be there? Because if you only use it once, people are going to say, oh, he must have goofed up a little bit on that. That's why that color's in there. And you can take, boy, next time I got to get more towels here. You can take, if I can find a piece of clean towel, you can blot that out. You can take some of that darker blue away, you know, and it works. It can work, but you just have to blend it in, you know, make it look like it's supposed to be there. Some in there. It could be shadow or something in the flower, but it does add a little bit of color to it. Take some of this out. Yeah. Wiggle the brush around a little bit. That will dry lighter too. But if it doesn't, I just come back and hit it. If it's a little bit too strong in there, I just take some of it out with maybe the brush. Lift some of that out of there. Or just put some white in there. Okay, I'm just moving on. Now, the finale is that there's a little bit of this sort of a yellowish orange color that's right inside here a little bit on some of the, look like some of the seeds or something in the plant, and you can add some of that in there. And give it that finishing touch. Okay, now this is kind of done a little bit on the quick side. So what I do later on, I'll come back and just do a little bit more touching up. But for now, I'm kind of running out of time a little bit. But I'm just going to kind of turn this around a bit and see if I can grab a hold of some of this masking tape I put on. It's sort of a false matte. If I can get it started. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. Strong tape too. Okay. You can get this pulled off around the edges here. Now, what may happen here is that you'll find that maybe you can either lighten up an area or you can come back and make it darker. But usually what happens when you look at it tomorrow morning, everything gets a little bit lighter to begin with. See where this is really dark here? Nothing else like it. So you can either lighten this up or you can make some of the other petals darker. Either way. And then another thing you can do too, I'll probably let it dry a little bit more, but you could take some of that Payne's gray, take some of that gray, and you could take, just don't make it too dark, but you could take some of the Payne's gray and put it into your blue. See what I can do here. And you could put some little shading in here, say put some shadow on the petal. Now that's too dark, right? See, that would be too dark, maybe. So what you do is just take your brush and lift some of that out. You could take some of that out of there and spread it around. Now, I don't think you'd want to make everything too dark like that, but that's where you can blot it, or you can put some white in there. I'm just going to kind of take some of that out for now. You see how you can lift some of the paint out? And you don't have to have it that dark. Just wiggle the brush around, soften it in. But if you do that, then you have to repeat that on some of the other flowers. So see how you can make some shading on some of the others. But that's something that you can decide to do. You probably don't want to do it right now because the paint is still wet. But you can do it, you know, a little bit later on. You can put some shading in there, you put some shading on the petals and on the leaves too, for that matter. Like I said, if this leaf here, right now it's kind of heavy, isn't it? Just wet it, just with water on your brush. Take a clean part of your towel, and you can take some of that color out. You can lighten it up quite a bit. I think that's one of the advantages of using watercolor in that respect, because you can reactivate your colors, and you can soften them up if you want to. Or you can go over it very easily, make some of the leaves jump out a little bit more. I don't want to tamper with this too much because I don't want to mess it up. But you get the idea how you can do it. So to touch up a lot of times, you can blot it out, you can erase it sometimes, or you can use your white acrylic paint and just go over some of those areas, kind of clean it up a little bit more. A lot of times I find a lot of things in the morning that you know, that you can touch up. Okay, see how I took some of that out of there. Okay, now this is up to you. But like I said, you could use some of this darker blue if you want this to be a little darker shading down here around the base. And you can just make that look like some shadow down here underneath, you know, and give it more foundation. Okay? So that's about it. And like I said, let it dry overnight. And then if you need to reactivate it, just put water on the brush. Don't put any color on the brush. Just wiggle the brush around with water on the brush. Reactivate the color, and you can erase whatever you want to lighten up. Okay? So I don't want to do too much of that because what happens is I start showing somebody what to do, and it doesn't come out, it gets a little bit much. So, but you get the idea that you can touch up certain areas and put more shadow, into the picture, okay? So until next time, brushes up and we'll see you later.